So this morning, it's Youth Sunday, so we have a couple of our high school seniors here to share parts of their faith journey with you. And so we have Celia Millar and Jonah, and they've been active and involved in the church for a long, long time. And they have some wonderful things to share about this faith that holds us and sets us out to serve. So when we started talking about how we wanted to share this today, we have a few questions that we're going to wonder about. And we started with the one that we always need to start with, whether it's in our lives, in the world, or as we're reading Scripture. And that first question is, what is God up to? What is God doing? And so, what do you hear happening in this story?
I hear that God is putting himself at risk in order to heal others and to help them, because, he could get sick himself or get in trouble, and he really put himself out there in order to come and heal us and to show us his ways and teach us about what he does.
Regardless of any consequence, he says, I'm going to do this. This is the right thing to take care of God's children. Yeah. Jonah, what do you think?
Just like you just said, like regardless of what could happen, he didn't care, and all he wanted to do was heal and then go pray and then continue to go on and teach more and just love people.
Yeah, so what God is up to in Jesus here is to heal, to teach, and to share this message that gives life instead of things that take life away from us. It's powerful. This selflessness, always putting others first, right? And that's a great place to start when we begin thinking about these biblical stories, but our lives too, right? So what does that mean for us? So the next question that we want to think about and talk about is, so then what does that mean for our church and for the whole world? What do you think, Jonah?
I think like everybody could always be more selfless. There's always like another person who could use a lending hand. And I think we could all just take more time to help out each other and help each other, whether it's like because they're in a tough spot or they just need some healing or some love or somebody to teach them.
Yeah, there's always someone who needs us, right? One of the things that we often, I think we all get into it is, well, this church thing and faith, living it out, what's in it for me? And that's okay. The first question is, who needs me? Who needs me to be Jesus for them and to be selfless and carry that out? Yeah. Celia, what's on your mind when you think, what does this mean for our church and for this whole world?
I think when you're scared or you don't know what's about to happen, like you have a hardship that happens to you, you have to really trust God for what he's going to bring to you and give to you, because there's some times when people are so lost with things that happen, and you just really have to lean on God to just trust that he has what's the best for you.
Is that always a real comfortable thing when we're trusting that what God has is the best thing for us? We might have another idea.
Yeah, we might not always agree with what he says, but in the long run, it will all work out, and there's always a reason for everything.
So trusting that if I follow God's way, instead of, especially maybe when that's at odds with what I was thinking, but I know what God's way is, that's where we need to go, right? So you mentioned Jesus was selfless and putting himself at risk for everyone. And that helps us understand what we're to live out in this world, right? Jonah, you talked about earlier your experiences with Feed My Starving Children and what that's meant to you. Share some of that insight with us.
Yeah, so I've done Feed My Starving Children probably at least once a year since fourth grade or so. It's always a lot of fun because everybody's there just to help people, just to get people who need food. And it gets like competitive, but the competition is to help more people. So it's kind of cool to think about it like that. And it's just hundreds of people. So I've always really enjoyed it. And my first year doing it in fourth grade, I was there with my basketball team. And there were too many of us, so I got like separated from most of them. But I was there with my dad, and then I turned away from my dad, and I saw on the other side of me, working right next to me, was my fourth grade teacher. And I always thought she was like a very nice, very kind lady. So I thought it was really cool that she was there, and that all these different types of people were there, all just to help people.
You get in a lot of trouble in fourth grade?
I didn't. Not in fourth.
So not in fourth grade. Even a little competition. I mean, the goal is there's hungry and starving people across this world, and that's the goal we want to get. And a little competition along the way. It's like let's get this done. Let's really do it. You might not know this, but he knows competition. He's a pole vaulter, and he's a good pole vaulter. And he's actually pole vaulted in a flying squirrel outfit. Seen it, right? I still think you should have worn that this morning. It would have made a huge impact. I think that would have been good. Because Jonah enjoys life, right? And tell us more about what it was like when you turned, there's your teacher. You see your teacher every day. This is our everyday stuff. And now there's something even beyond that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was in fourth grade, so I kind of still had the idea that maybe she slept at the school. I wasn't really sure. So then I saw that, okay, she is allowed to leave. But yeah, it was just, it wasn't something that was a part of my normal life. Like, it was my first time doing it. And, there's not always Feed My Starving Children events, so it wasn't part of hers. So, like, we had both made time out of our own, like, personal lives, and, like, we ended up being able to work on something positive together.
Yeah, we all have our regular stuff, our regular everyday, and we're called to love and to serve. And when we see others doing the same thing, it inspires and encourages us to participate and be a part of that. I think that's huge. That's part of what the church is. Now, we just had a whole bunch of little ones up here. And Celia, you've had wonderful opportunities to be with some of these little Lutherans. So tell us some about that.
So I teach Sunday school, and I've been doing that for a few years with my mom. And I knew I wanted to be a Sunday school teacher because I loved Sunday school when I was younger. Even if I hated waking up early, it was always really fun once we got there. And yeah, I knew I wanted to do it right away because I wanted them to have someone to talk to and if they needed help with anything. And I think it's really cool when I see them outside of church and they come up and say hi and they give you a big hug. And even if they're not in my class right now, I've had them years before and they still come up, and that just makes me feel really good.
I'll bet you learn a thing or two from them.
Yes. Even I feel like I am the teacher, but I don't always, they teach me more than I teach them sometimes, and it's not all about church, it's about myself. They help me to take a deep breath, and just everything is so simple, and I tend to overcomplicate things, and so they help me to just relax and focus on just simple things that kind of take my worries away, and it's really nice to see that once a week.
Yeah, because none of the rest of us ever overthink things, right? We don't do that. But yeah, we learn from them, and think of the impact that you guys have had growing up in the church from, older high school kids when you were little and adults and others, and now you're having that same impact. It's a pretty powerful thing. And, as you said, we want to follow God's way, right? God's way for us is best, and when we trust in that, right? And you said sometimes you don't want to get out of bed on Sunday morning. This morning, I said I wanted to sleep in. I didn't want to get up. I wanted to sleep in, and that was a little bit of a joke, but maybe some of you have felt that way on a Sunday morning, that you wanted to sleep. But you get up and do it, and you go, and you have this marvelous experience with these little kids who teach you and share life with you. I mean, it's just powerful. It's a neat thing. It's just this powerful, amazing thing about the gospel of Jesus that brings us together like that. So that brings us to our third question, right? So what does this mean for you, both now and into your future? Jonah?
Well, for me, I think I need to make sure I keep my trust in God and that He will guide me down the right path. We're both seniors, so we're about to go through a lot of changes, going to college or leaving the house, things like that. So a lot of decisions to be made, and I'm kind of just trusting that He'll help me make the right decisions right now.
Yeah, getting back to that trust thing. I mean, the disciples in the story, I'm not sure they exactly trusted. Jesus was gone, and they're freaking out, and He says, it's okay, we're going to carry this message out. And those people who brought others to Jesus, they were trusting that He would care for them. So that guidance and trust is really important in every piece of our lives. And Celia, you've got some thoughts for next year too.
Next year, I'll be in a city where I don't know anyone, brand new faces and places and things, but I feel like a lot of people feel lonely the first year at college because they don't really know anyone, but as long as you think that you're not ever truly alone because you have God to always rely on and stuff, I feel like a lot of overwhelming things will be taken care of as long as we believe that He'll guide us the right way and make the right decisions and stuff like that.
God in Christ is always with us, whether we realize it or not. But when you realize it, there's comfort, there's peace. And when we trust, okay, here we go, right? So where do you think you're going to go next year?
I'm going to go to the U of M in Minneapolis, and I want to do speech pathology.
So an important piece. I mean, it's a great need in our world, improving other people's lives through that. You really will impact them. Jonah, what are you thinking?
I'm most likely going to go to Concordia and study marketing.
All right. But this hasn't always been the case, right? You have some different thoughts early, and it might change. I mean, Celia, you wanted to be a teacher at a time, or a nurse, but somehow making an impact in this world, and we trust, right? So you've got, before next year, you've got a few months left of high school, and then between now and heading off to college, hopefully we'll have a wonderful trip this summer. Where should we go?
New Orleans.
Yes, the
Yeah.
church-wide youth gathering. What are your hopes and dreams and expectations for this journey?
I'm really looking forward to it because it will be a fun trip that most of us haven't gone on, and we'll get to explore new places and just meet a lot of people who are also there for the same things, because they don't drag us along to this trip. We choose to go on it, and that just makes it more meaningful, and we get to experience new things with people that we've grown up with and created bonds and relationships with, and I am just really looking forward to that.
What are your hopes, Jonah?
Well, like you said earlier, there was when I was younger, there was the high schoolers in the church that I looked up to, and they all still to this day talk about their youth gathering trips, or my parents or my siblings, they're all still talking about them, and I'm really excited to finally, it's my turn to have that experience, and I'm just excited to bond with all the people from the church when we're traveling or just after the gathering, because we all chose to be there, so we all want to be there, and we're all there to have a good time, so.
I mean, think of this. You both of you have been here your whole lives, right? And all of the people who have impacted you along the way. And, your parents love you, and they brought you here, and even when we want to sleep in sometimes, right? But when you're here, you get this community that's unlike anything else in the world. And now we get to go to a new place, right? With tens of thousands of other people there for the same reason. And we'll worship together, some really cool stuff. Here's some speakers, and we'll learn. And service. We get to go out and serve. Do service in the city of New Orleans. Pretty powerful. And we connect with all these others from across the country and our group, right? Those bonds that you have, and maybe we'll even strengthen and make some new ones on this journey. So any last thoughts on what God is up to in your life?
Well, I feel like with these last months of high school, we're closing one chapter and opening another one. And even though it's really sad, I know that if I just trust, as we've said before, but if I just trust that everything has to come to an end at one point, and I just have to keep going along because there are better and bigger things going to happen in the future, and it's really exciting.
Yeah, Jonah.
I feel like for my life, I've felt like a lot of protection and guidance from God recently, and that's something that's really nice to feel. I've felt very fortunate recently, and I feel like I'm going down the right path.
Yeah. So we want to thank you. And that last question, they had no idea I was going to ask that. I threw it at them. So I thought they did pretty well. And I thank you for sharing these pieces of your faith journey. I think we should all say a thanks to these guys. They're remarkable.